Okay, you guys, I think we're going to start things off right now. My name's David, and this is Everyday Short Stories. Um, what I do is I throw out a theme. I ask people to come up and tell a true story that's roughly 5 minutes. Um, in truth, it's been anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, but they're all great stories and are a lot of fun. This month's theme is music. And I like to kick off the show with my story because, I'm producing and hosting it. So I get that luggage. And you guys can see how low the bar is set. That's another. So, um, so this story is called Music and Why I Feel I'm Lame Sometimes. Music. My dad was born in 1932, was a huge big band fan, and ever since I was a kid, we had big band and jazz on. My mom would give him so much grief about playing the moldy oldies, and then she would go and turn on classical music, which I always thought was kind of funny. But we had classical music and big band, and then in the 70s, my parents got into a guy named P.D.Q. Bach, who, if you're familiar with that kind of fun classical music, I guess, and then Leon Redbone. And then my brothers were traditional Columbus, Ohio boys. They loved their Led Zeppelin and their Rolling Stones and the Who, and and so that I really had a really great eclectic, music all around me, and I really loved it. And when I was in 5th grade, my parents insisted that I take up music, and my older brother played trumpet, so I didn't want to be like him, so I played the saxophone. Um, I think the music's playing in here. Um, thanks. So I picked up the saxophone. I picked up the alto saxophone because I was 10 years old and I didn't want a saxophone that was bigger than me. Um, and I loved it, and I was pretty good at it. And when I got into middle school, my middle school music teacher, Mr. Derrickson, played trombone in a band on the weekends. So he loved music, and he loved modern pop music. And every couple weeks he'd come in with these handwritten music sheets that he had just figured out over the weekend. And pretty much his arrangements were always spot on. He rarely ever had to change his arrangements. He couldn't afford real sheet music because it was a public school. So then I got to high school, and high school was phenomenal. But I need to tell you a little bit about my high school. I went to Columbus South motherfucking High. So, and what that meant was we were considered the worst school in the city of Columbus, Ohio. And my brother and I, when we talk about that, we both kind of laugh because we had pretty amazing teachers. We had a really great math program. We had a phenomenal music program. So my brother got into band and marching band and jazz band, and he also got into choir, and he got into show choir, and he was, that was his thing. He loved it. So as a freshman, I got into marching band, and I got into symphonic band. As a sophomore, I sat first chair, so I was pretty good at playing saxophone. But I was not very confident about singing. So our choir director, his name was Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson was a guy from upstate New York, and he had this big, loud, obnoxious voice. And he and my brother had become friends since my brother graduated, and they started hanging out and became friends. And so I knew Johnson actually on a social level, but I tried to avoid him in school because ever since I was a freshman, I'd be walking down the hall in between classes. The hallways are packed, and here comes Johnson. Hey, Mally. Hey, Mally. So the whole school has now stopped and is staring at me. You gonna join choir? No, Johnson, I'm not joining choir. What are you, a little pussy? Yes, Johnson, I'm a little pussy. Okay, as long as everybody knows that. Okay, Johnson. All right. And this kind of continued, and he knew that he wasn't really getting me into choir. So I think he just kind of upped the ante as far as trying to embarrass me. So his next step was to go, hey, Mally, give me a la, 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 la right now. Come on, give it to me. So now I have the whole school staring at me while he's screaming at the top of his lungs, give me a la, 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 la. And I told my older brother that story, and he goes, Johnson wouldn't do that. And I go, yeah, he would. He did it. He did it on numerous occasions. And he goes, he wouldn't say la, 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 la. He'd do it as a scale. I'm like, really? That's your criticism? It's not some guy who's embarrassing a 14-year-old in the middle of the school, and he goes, I don't know. I don't care. So, but I ended up joining choir eventually, and it was amazing. What made it amazing was Brian was super competitive too. He loved music and everything like that, but he was very, very competitive. So in the worst high school in the city of Columbus, Ohio, our choir director had us going to competition doing AAA material. So AAA was the most difficult material you could do, and then AA and A and so forth. Brian had a bunch of inner city kids singing Latin and German, you know, and we always scored really high and always ended up going to state. So Brian was pretty amazing. But as much as I liked choir and I liked band, Brian kept pushing me to get into show choir. And I really resisted and ended up never joining show choir, mostly because I was afraid of dance. So as much as my parents loved music and they listened to it all the time, and my friends listened to music, none of us danced. None of us talked about dancing. We didn't go to dances. This wasn't a Christian thing. It was just, maybe it was just a blue-collar city thing. I don't know what it was, but nobody talked about dance. Nobody went to them. If we had teen nights at a local bar on Sundays, and we'd only go there to, you know, make a fool out of ourselves and try to hit on women, or, well, girls at the time, I guess, but, you know. So we never danced. And then show choir, I'd have to dance. And I was like, okay, you got me to sing. I mean, now you're trying to get me to dance? It's just not going to happen. And I kind of regret that, because I have this beautiful, amazing wife and who loves to dance, and I'm lame. I don't dance. When I hear music, I just sit back and I think about it, and I ponder it, and I let it fill me with daydreams, but I don't dance. So I love music, but I would love to dance, and I'd love to dance with my wife. So I figured if I stood up here and I embarrassed myself, maybe I'd be a little more motivated to dance. So that's my story.